This episode of Corner JUTA De Beer is sponsored by MIWAY Blink, the faster, simpler, and more rewarding car insurance. Get a quote in minutes. Get car cover sorted in a blink.
You have to be ready to do it because it's either you're in it all the way or you're not, right? Because it's gonna take a lot of time and energy.
From Corner JUTA De Beer, imina msindisi wesi, umvelisi ngomelisi wesizwe, formerly known as Lwazi Madonsela, bringing you a show about creative entrepreneurs live from the landmark that not only birth SA street culture but also formalize the street hustle. On today's episode we have
Lelo, what's good? Corner JUTA De Beer, msindisi wesi umvelisi on a special edition. Thank God for the savings. We are and him. Today we have a special guest, top 5 most requested guest, a game changer, community architect, a writer, an activist, social media warrior, Twitter thought. No, what's that guy with the ring? Damn, for what? My mouth is just terrible. But that guy, Thanos,
yes.
Twitter Thanos, because you got all. You got the humor, you got the activism, you say it all. I'm like, it's always interesting to
go
keeping up with your tweets and looking at everything, because you like real-time cultural analyst and you reflecting us and you telling us what everything that's happening. Lelo, what's good? How you doing?
Thank you for having me here. I'm good.
I'm honored to have you here.
Yeah,
it's like the requests were crazy, but also we had spoken about it with Mash. I was like, yo, I want Lelo on the show, and you guys know each other. I was like, okay, cool. It's like, now we'll make it happen. You can't have everyone at one time. You know? Most importantly, the show is about the kids at home, right? It's about inspiring the kid in grade 11. The kid we all used to be just sitting on our computers, some in the library like you. I was sitting on my phone, still begging my mother to get uncapped Wi-Fi because we had like the slow stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'd end up in the design room the whole time because when you had access to a phone and computer, print everything at the same time, right? So I'm sitting there, I'm like, yo, what am I asking Lelo? Because Lelo's done it all, you know, in terms of your lifespan in the creative field, you decade deep almost, chasing, you know. So when I look at it, the first question I always ask is a very selfish question for the viewers at home. How do you go from an idea of an event to actually having an event that's profitable?
That is I don't think there's a method for it. I think for me, what I kind of did is I just focused on one thing, which was really just like making it about the community and not changing that at all. So I had a very unique idea of what VNJ should be, what it should look like. And obviously coming off the back of, you know, where it comes from as well, you know, because it's not the first time that, you know, we've seen a ballroom. You know, it started in the mid-80s in New York City by the Black and Latino queer community. And they used that because society, you know, deprived them, didn't see them as equals. And, you know, there was much injustice and discrimination. And the community basically went into spaces and they made ballroom a thing because they wanted to celebrate each other and wanted to see themselves as the way that they, you know, should see themselves in the world as well. And, you know, I was really inspired by that and, you know, the stories, you know, from the ballroom community and the scene and, you know, what was happening there. And obviously, you know, that culture became globalized and I really wanted something like that here, but also giving it our own twist and flavor. And yeah, you know, we really needed a space like that. And for that to become a thing now, like I'm looking at it, it's like we're celebrating like 5 years this year in June. And, you know, it's only started to become like a little bit profitable, you know. But that was never it was never a thing for me because I really just wanted to have a space where people could come together and just like, you know, just be themselves.
Celebrate each other. Yeah,
just be themselves. And, you know, because we don't have much spaces like that in the city or in South Africa in general. I always say the Constitution is, you know, it's a piece of paper and it doesn't really reflect what's happening on the ground or in the streets. And I think media, number one, and things that happen in real life and on the streets have a very powerful way to like really impact society, you know. When people see other people, you know, being themselves and living their truth, you know, and I think that's when, you know, society starts to like really like open up and be like more I hate the word like being accepted, but yeah, you know, to just like, you know, treat, you know, other people like people, basically. Yeah.
And then you look at it, right? You creating a community, telling a story, right? And you trying to create a safe space, and then it gets to a point where you've scaled to a certain level, and then people are trying to mobilize a community. How are you working with brands and in the same light helping your community grow, creating the space to be even bigger, creating more opportunities for everyone within the community and not just the brand V&J?
100%. I think for me it's just a point of like making things accessible, and you know, if we want to pull off like really big productions and really have like the glamorous stuff that we really want to see at our events. And that the only way to do that is to bring on a brand, but it must match and align with what we're trying to do, because I think there's a lot of brands that also want to latch on for the sake of, oh, look at us, we're doing, you know,
Pride Month.
Yeah, like we want to seem like we're inclusive, whatever. But you know, like not a lot of brands want to, you know, stick the whole way through, or you know, or like really want to invest in the community. And you know, it's either you're in it all the way or you're not, you know what I mean? And I think that's why also I've like taken time to sort of like reach out to certain brands, and they reach out to me, and I'm very picky and selective with who I want to work with. And you know, it just must make sense, basically.
How do you approach the brand for like the kid at home? Because you have the narrative, you have the community you're trying to cater to, you know what the reach would be with the brand and the look, especially the logistics. Because when we're talking community and scaling, we're always looking at the logistics, how we're making life easier. Like, I know from my perspective, if ever I was to host an event, if you can get like a brand like Uber to partner in, then everyone who comes to the show gets a discount, you know?
100%.
How are you talking to brands in a certain way that's like, how do you approach a brand for the kid at home?
Approaching a brand, well, here's how it goes. I think for me, having an advertising background sort of helped for me, because I think I have a certain way with like how I do presentations. So I think it's really good to establish what your brand is. Number one, like how does it look? How does it feel like? Or like what are you trying to say about the certain thing that you're doing? Number two, presentations. And like that's the most important thing as well, you know, having a really good idea and then putting it into words and visualizing it for someone else to see so that you can sell your thing is very important, and that's how they latch onto the idea as well. Another third thing that people don't really speak about is it's a very unspoken rule, but you know, establishing a relationship with the brand, maybe like prior or like you know, even like afterwards as well. Like if you meet with a certain person that works at the brand, you know, like what does that relationship look like? And you know, sometimes the relationship could take like a year or 2 years to build before you get a certain thing. But yeah, you know, it's just like having someone on the other side to really like push for you and push for your idea.
Get an advocate inside.
Exactly.
So we get the deal, right? Like you just pulled off the YFM, it was phenomenal. You had tasks, the numbers were great, stage design. When we get the deal, how do we maintain the relationships? Because we're really great at getting the money, and then once we have the money, we're not capturing the event, we're not showcasing the event, we're not thanking sponsors. What's the one way that we can actually maintain relationships? Because you see a lot of events, they'll have a big sponsor, and then the sponsor just disappears after.
I think a really good way to maintain a relationship with the brand is, you know, to treat it with the utmost respect. So show up for the meetings, do follow-ups, you know, even after the event. You know, I think it's very important to like do debriefs, like, hey, is this something that you guys want to do afterwards as well? Like maybe in the next year, like how do you see yourselves growing from that, like after it happens? And yeah, just basically like, just like what does it look like for you? Like, is it something that you want to do afterwards, like with that certain brand? Like, did it work out? Like, was it good? Was it a good brand fit, you know? Because sometimes you don't see something happen until it does happen, and then you reevaluate your position afterwards, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think there's quite a few things to take into consideration about that. Yeah.
How feasible is the event space for like someone who's like telling a narrative-based thing, because we found a lot of events. It's like, okay, cool. There's the events that we're hosting a brunch and we have this type of music. We have Vogue nights, like we hosting certain type of music, and the stage is very important to Vogue nights as opposed to another event. We just need a DJ booth. How important and feasible is a narrative-based event?
I think it's very important to have a narrative, or not even a narrative. Like, what type of community are you serving for? You know, it could be like a jazz crowd. It could be like a very like chilled hip hop, you know, lo-fi type of crowd. Like who are you actually serving this for, so that you can make decisions after that of like what the brand should look and feel like. And there's quite a few events that I can look at and be like, oh, I know exactly what this type of event is by the time I get there, just based on the people that go there, you know. So yeah, I think that's one of the most important things. It's just like, you know, who am I catering for, basically.
What's Lelo's creative narrative? What's Lelo trying to say in this world?
Wow. What can I say that I haven't already said, you know, basically on my social media? I think my narrative is, you know, I really do believe in speaking up for myself, and you know, it sounds like a very selfish question, like answer, but you know, speaking up for myself basically means that I'm also speaking for 10 other people who identify as I identify, who look the way that I do as well, and who relate to me, more importantly. And you know, that happens to be like my community. So whenever I speak up, I'm also speaking up for other people as well, who might not necessarily want to do the speaking. And you know, I think that's it's a very tough thing to do. It's a huge responsibility when you've sort of like placed yourself in a position of, you know, speaking for, you know, a lot of people who necessarily don't have the means to do so. But you know, it's an important one to do, and you know, you treat that thing with such tenderness and kindness, and yeah, you know, you just do what you got to do, basically.
You come from a writing background, like very early. You and Tebe come to the show. You created. Always take this moment.
Always
on the job. So you create Faculty Press. You guys are telling a narrative. How do kids at home just sit back and say, we're doing this without the resources, just with our experience and our access?
Yeah.
What's the thing that gets you going?
The thing with Faculty, actually, so Tebe, it was a random day on it was 2018. I think Tebe was showing at SA Fashion Week at that time. Also, like, you know, Tebe didn't know, like a lot of people didn't know Tebe at that time also, you know, he was also just starting out, and it was like a small community of people that knew who he was, which was in the fashion industry, right? So I think he had read my review of his collection that I did. I think it was either on my blog or somewhere else. And now do you understand the golden thread of, like, you know, the blog writing from where it was to where it is now. He had read something that I'd written about the show, and he approached me. He was like, hey, I really like your writing. Like, it's really dope. You have a really fresh perspective. There's something that I'm putting together. Would you be interested in helping me out doing this thing? And yeah, we met at a Starbucks in Rosebank, and the rest was history. Yeah, I helped Tim out with the editing process, you know, putting the ideas into, you know, pages, approaching people, and, you know, really putting everything into the theme that he envisioned for that first issue, so that it can go in print. And yeah, it was a really good first edition, and I think it really placed us where we needed to be at that time, because he took Faculty and went to the UK with it to exhibit his collection. I think that's where he won an award for, and Faculty Press was there as well. So I think what that did for us as the creative community, because it wasn't just me and Tebe and Amy, but it was everyone else who was involved in the process as well, you know, of putting that thing together. You know, the photographers, the writers, you know, really like the creative community who just helped build this thing, and to showcase, you know, the talents that we have as South Africans as well as young people. I think it was really amazing, and for Tebe to put that on an international scale was really, really major. Yeah.
I mean, you've had your stint at the International with the New York Times, and then do you ever consider going back to writing or possibly writing a book, telling your story even further?
Yeah, that's actually one of the things that I want to do this year, is to really get back into writing. I think I've been putting it off for so long, mainly because I've been focusing on, you know, the DJing, the music, and the inventing and stuff like that. But, you know, my first love will always be writing and storytelling and putting those words into stories, and, you know, really just like creating other narratives for other people. And it's really something that I want to get back into this year. And I actually tweeted about this. I wanted to relaunch my blog, so I'll probably do it on my website. But yeah, people will see that soon.
What's the jump to music? Because music's an expensive sport. You have to pay for the graphics, you have to pay for the beats.
Listen.
Be registered as an artist.
It's a lot of work.
Do the rollout.
It's a lot of work. Yeah, you don't just wake up and decide to be a musician, right, or an artist. I think it's something that you really just have to be ready to do it, because it's either you're in it all the way or you're not, right? Because it's gonna take a lot of time and energy, and you know, I think I can understand why some people would want to quit music, because, you know, you don't even really see results immediately. But I think I'm doing music because I want to, and it's because it's something that I've always wanted to do. I've always been in love with music. I'm in love with the way that it makes me feel. I'm in love with the way that it makes other people feel. And it's an experience that, you know, everyone should, you know, be into, you know what I mean? Everyone listens to music, you know what I mean? But it just depends on what your vibe is. But yeah, it's a really interesting journey, you know. I only just started now, so I'm a couple of months in, but I am really looking forward to what the future will look like, especially as me as an artist. Yeah.
Talking about music and the community you've built with VNJ, how did you scale it up? Like, how did you go from a small room, go from Mabone to Shine Studios? How are we scaling? Because some of us, we starting our little events, we got 100 people.
Yeah.
How do we get to 1,000?
I mean, I started there as well, you know. I remember VNJ, like the first event actually was like maybe like 150 people, close to 200. And it was like that for the past like maybe like 2.5 years. And, you know, I think the one thing that made me scale, or the one thing that made the event scale, was the consistency. You know, people do events all the time, you know what I mean? But I think for me, it was the determination, the consistency, building on the brand, and really taking that seriously into, you know, into what that is and what it looks like, you know, just like how the event sounds like sonically, how it looks like on Instagram, like, you know, you're selling people to come to this thing, right? Because they want to see, like, what is this, you know, what is Ballroom, like, what people on runways, blah blah blah, like they're winning trophies and all of that, you know. I think that's the grip that people had of, like, you know, we want to experience what Ballroom is, and more than anything, you know, we want to have a good time, and and just like, you know, what does it mean to be part of this so-called community, you know? And that's the thing that I built VNJ off of.
How do you stimulate it though in those moments where there is no event? In the December case where our next event is only in Feb, how do you stimulate the community in time being? Because you've built such a profound brand, which a lot of people tend to build brands when you talk about consistency, but how do we actually keep our brands going during the off season?
And I had an off season actually last year. the last event that I did was in September, and then we only did our event now in Feb, so that was like a couple of months off, right? And the one thing that I keep people stimulated with is obviously through social media, so the sharing of the pictures, the moments, and yeah, the tweeting as well, you know, just like engaging with the community always. Yeah, that's what keeps people going.
How important is marketing in post-event?
Very important. Very, very important. You know, you need to entice people to see what like, especially for those who missed out, to be like, oh man, I missed out on this. I really have to go to the next one. So building stuff like, you know, the after movies, the pictures, the reels, and just like making people engage with that content as well, right? You know, sharing people's stories and their tweets, and, you know, really just like making them part of the brand. Like, oh, I feel seen, like I was part of this, and, you know, and yeah, that's basically how I do that.
And then how long do you generally give like a brand partnership role? Because there's pre-production, there's the actual event, and then post-production. Are they still in the after movie? Are we trying to get another deal? How do we... Because as creatives, we always in this rat race, right? You have your ideal brands that you want to work with, and I think this would change everything for us in terms of the alignment, everything that we want, especially the future relationship. When you do get them, how do we get there to that point?
Yeah, I mean,
how do we get them in the 360?
Yeah, I mean, you basically, you involve them from jump, right? So as soon as you drop a poster, they're there. At the event, they're there. Even after the thing, like it's like you said, it's a 360. Like you have to involve the brand or who you're partnering with throughout the entire journey. Because I mean, it would look kind of weird if it wasn't that way, right? And you make certain commitments with brands to say that, yo, if you're signing up for this is exactly what we're doing. We're doing A, B, and C, and we're going to involve you throughout the entire process, basically. Yeah.
And then how do we get brands to still fund the wider community? Because it's not just V&J, also you get the pussy party, and what's your role within facilitating that everyone else gets to eat within this?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about opening doors, right? You know, I think what that happens then is, like, for example, a brand manager would approach you and be like, hey, is there anything else that's happening in the community that we could potentially fund, right? And, you know, I think it's up to you as a promoter to actually be willing to give contacts and be like, yo, have you heard about A, B, and C? Or even if they haven't asked, but you go to them and be like, yo, there's this really cool community that's, you know, pushing A, B, and C. Maybe you should, you know, check them out. Or go with that person to that event to really explore, like, what's happening. You know, I think that you honestly have to really open yourself up to sharing stuff like that, and to collaborate as well. So yeah, that's really important.
The most important question on this show is always, what's your word to the youth?
My word to the youth.
What advice would you give Lelo in grade 11 at the library, typing up in the block spot?
I think my advice I would give to any young person is to really just, and I say this quite a few times, and it sounds a little bit cliche, but no one can replicate like who you are. So really just like, if you're gonna do something, make it all about you. Like, put in your own flavor. No one can, you know, repeat what you're trying to do. No one can replicate your ideas and the way that you execute them, because, you know, we might have the same idea, but the way that I do something versus the way you do something might be totally different. So I think that it's really important for people to just remember who they are and really just push their own thing. Yeah, that's basically what I would say.
Yeah. And then you're working as an influencer. You're traveling for a specific brand, and you go overseas. How are you opening yourself up to the world, the opportunities?
Yeah, the one thing that I'm doing currently is to really network with the wider community outside of South Africa. And, obviously the only way to do that is to engage online. So Instagram, Twitter. So I've found that I connect really well with, people or like other creatives overseas. And that's why when I went to Berlin, like I didn't struggle with getting around anywhere because I'd already established with building a network and a base in Berlin already, so that by the time I'm there, I already know who to meet up with and I already know where to hang out, and and one door opening can lead to the next door opening as well. So yeah, that's basically how I established that thing that I'm doing. And just like having a network everywhere, just you never know who's actually watching your stories and stuff like that. But it's also very important for you to just like, hit up someone, as scary as it might sound like, and be like, yo, I'm trying to do A, B, and C. How can I pull through and, make this thing happen and work?
Thank you, Lelo. That's good.
Thank you.
I guess we finally know what's good.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
My dad jokes were on today.
Yes.
Thank you for coming over.
Thanks for having me.
Khona Juta De Beer.
This episode of Khona Juta De Beer is sponsored by MIWAY Blink, the faster, simpler, and more rewarding car insurance. Get cover in a blink. You can get up to 50% monthly cash back when you drive less than 2.5 kilometers per month. You can also manage your cover wherever and wherever with MIWAY Blink. Get a code in minutes.